What's the size of your property? Whereabouts?
When I bought it, I think they said it was like a quarter of an acre.
Quarter acre with a historic home pretty much centered. You don't really have a large backyard or a large front yard or a large side yard. In fact, your park strip is the size of someone's front yard and then some.
Yeah.
So you've got this big house kind of centered on it, and we just kind of need to make everything around it make sense.
Yes.
The house itself, I wanted to kind of talk about like what the house is telling us. That's why I was asking you about the colors, because it is really interesting. You said what year?
1911.
1911. Really interesting, like the Victorian era is kind of ending, but you can see the Victorian influence. But then there's like the exposed kind of rafter tail look of like an arts and crafts bungalow and the porch of an arts and crafts bungalow. You can see these two architectural styles like overlapping at this very unique point of time at the turn of the century, which is really cool. So that's interesting to me because if I see a Victorian house, I'm usually like cottage garden.
Yeah.
But if I see an arts and crafts house or a craftsman bungalow, I'm like arts and crafts garden. And the difference between those is that an arts and crafts garden really has a lot more like individual plant definition, whereas a cottage garden, all these herbaceous perennials kind of just grow up in, and you can't really tell where one plant starts and one plant ends. A craftsman or arts and crafts style garden, really similar to a cottage garden. I'm just going to use like common plants that everybody knows. Like you'll see that the lavender starts and ends, and then the ornamental grass starts and ends, even if they're very close together. Do you like the sort of like textural chaos, or do you like things to feel a little more refined?
Honestly, I think I really like both. I think they both have a time and a place. The feeling that I want to have with this house in particular is a little bit more whimsical, so I think you would
skew
lean
cottage.
Towards, yeah.
Okay, so we're going for whimsy and you're not afraid of it. Okay, that is very good to know. You did mention that you might be repainting.
Yes.
I want to make sure that the landscaping doesn't clash with the color scheme. So do you have a general vision in mind?
Everything that's dark brownish color is going to be that mauvey pink tone that you can see right there.
Okay, so it's going to be more monochromatic.
Yes.
Okay, and then the under layer, like the cream?
That will stay. That will stay.
Okay.
It's really just the dark color that I think I needed to change.
Just throwing this out there, no decisions need to be made today. Typically, arts and crafts style bungalows and Victorian homes do have a tricolor palette historically. So I might be interested, I mean, this is me just asserting my opinion on you. Sorry,
no,
designer brain. But like I would maybe be interested in seeing like what tricolor Victorian or tricolor craftsman color palettes are in like the Sherwin-Williams historical collection with this kind of pink in it. The cream is one, the base, the pink is one, and right now the dark is one. They're almost all a little too neutral.
Yes.
So I'm almost like, do we need to just like top that off with something brighter instead of trying to make it blend into the background?
I was also contemplating like doing like a purplish color because
I've seen a ton of pink and purple Victorians.
And the whole inspiration for this house is like the Pink Palace from Coraline, and that's pink and purple. And I think it would look really pretty with a lot of different plants, both of those colors. So I really just need to do some mock-ups of it all and see how it's gonna look.
Okay. I feel full permission then to go like into the like blues, purples, silvery, like the silvery kind of green blue foliage, whites for sure, but like maybe we're avoiding yellows and oranges.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like we're avoiding just like really on the warm.
Or more like, I don't know.
Some yellows could be cute, to be honest.
Yeah, some yellows could be cute.
But like oranges and reds.
Yeah, anything that's like super warm and rich.
Yeah. I want to just like stay more ethereal and whimsical with it. So the only other thing I want to talk about structurally before we start talking about plants is a cottage garden usually has some sort of sense of like enclosure and boundary to it. There's normally not a sidewalk running through the middle of a front yard, right? Because we're standing on your park strip that's more yard than your yard. I don't necessarily want to put like a picket fence on your park strip. We don't need to do a picket fence at all. I know that budget can be a concern with like building anything structural.
I do think it would look better though at the front. Just even something short.
Yeah. Okay, so we're okay with doing
because I know what you're talking about, the border. I just feel like it makes a lot more sense when there's something for the plants to go along.
Yes. The thing with a cottage design specifically is you do have that like herbaceous, lush chaos, but there's an edge. If it wasn't going to be a fence, I would talk to you about like, do we need to do some sort of evergreen border? Or do we need to do something that's going to structure it and enclose it? I've even seen folks do like boulders, a slightly more like naturalistic take on a cottage garden. But if with this house doing what it's doing and you going for Pink Palace Whimsy, I want to pick a fence. and I would do it in the trim color that you pick. So if you pick purple for that, I'd do it purple because it would be crazy, but beautiful.
Yeah.
And weird. And awesome.
Literally what I want this to be. Crazy, beautiful, weird.
Yeah. It would be, I do the purple or I do the like cream bone color, which would be a slightly more refined choice. But I saw that you were not afraid of bold choices when I saw what the inside of your house looked like. So, you know, do the purple one. It'd be really cool. It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we were to do a small picket fence, like we could do the 2-foot tall one.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
You can buy those prefab. We're talking like a couple $100 investment instead of a $5,000 or $10,000 investment for fencing, and that'll still give the visual cue. And then we'd have that go basically in a square here with a gate at the front. That feels like really good for the front. Like I know what I'm doing to make the curb appeal pop. Well, how far do you want that fence to extend to either side?
I would like it to be the whole perimeter.
To just go, just do the whole thing. Okay, then that's what we can do. And then you'll have more of like an interior that feels, even if it's just a visual signal and not a 6-foot privacy fence, it'll still feel more like that's your space and not the public space. Got it. Okay, we need to talk about the park strip. It's so big. It's so big. I guess I can't dance around it. I just have to ask you about budget because I could do an amazingly beautiful, low maintenance, dense native planting here. It would be 300 plants just on this park strip. And then when you're talking between $10 and $30 a plant, budget just skyrockets. The number that I need as a designer, because I'm not the contractor, I'm not installing it, I'm not charging you for the materials. I need to know what is the number that all said and done, you are happy, like smile on your face, investing in this property. You're not mad at me, you're not cursing my name.
And that's just in like planting materials?
No, the fence that we talk about, any pathways, any hardscape, any refurbing your stone fireplace.
Yeah, I mean, that makes the price.
Yeah, it sure does. I'll offer one other framework that I think is really helpful for anybody that's considering like what their budget should be for their design, and it's you don't need to think about what is my all-in budget between now and when things are the most perfect they could ever be, because yards are marathons and not sprints. So I like to think about like what is a C+ grade? Don't want to insult your yard, but let's just assume like every yard is a failing grade at the start. What does going from an F to a C+ look like? And C+ to me is when you are out interacting with your yard and the emotion you can express is like, I am not angry. I deem this adequate.
Yeah.
Because to me, all the blood, sweat, and tears are between F and C.
Yeah.
C to A, just put a cute little apron on. You're tankering on a Saturday. It could take 5 years because you're going from good to great at that point.
Yeah.
But like going from fail to pass, that's when like things hurt.
Yeah. I think
What's that number?
I think the lowest amount would probably realistically be like maybe 10,000. And I mean, it's just so hard for me to like conceptualize when there's like this giant park strip and that thing and that giant park strip.
You have so much happening.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a baseline maybe, but even that seems kind of low.
It's low.
Yeah.
It is low. I want to just say up front, and for anybody that is planning a yard like this, and if you plan to hire out labor, it's too low, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I would be doing it all.
You'd be doing it all. Okay. So then that affects the way I design it for a lot of ways because I need to make choices that are easy. Like things that are going to involve like a bobcat and a contractor's license, I'm going to try to avoid in your design because I have to like acknowledge that you're doing this like on the weekends by yourself. And then we need to use some cheaper materials. And we need to be really strategic about like where we splurge and where we save. So like areas like this, we need to think about like what is a low maintenance ground cover or something that we can install rather than densely planting
right away
$3,000 worth of plants. I think we can talk about what $10,000 will get you on this property with all of the sweat equity that you're going to be putting in. I think it might be interesting to slide the scale around between 10 and 20.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, so that's not outside the realm. I don't want to like...
No, and like, I mean, this is going to take a long time to complete. I mean, that's just kind of how it's going to be. I mean... this whole thing has been just crazy numbers.
Right. No, I get it. I can't believe what you've done inside.
It's not freaking me out that much.
Okay, good. Yards are deceptively a large amount of work. If you're bringing in labor, I have yet to see a contractor bid for under $20,000. And a yard like this would be north of 50. Realistically, planning for a long-term spend of about 20 while you're putting in all the work is about what we need to do.
Yeah.
And you're okay with that?
I just want it to be how it needs to be. I don't want my budget to get in the way of it being at its full potential.
I get it. Well, and you put unique love and care into this house. Like, I'm gonna have to put up some pictures or video or something so people can see like how far you've taken it, because it's jaw-dropping. So it's like the yard can't contradict that. It can't just be like one of those things where it's like, well, don't look at that.
And that's how it is.
Isn't it nice on the inside? Like, we need the yard to tell the story that the inside of your house is telling. Okay, so with that in mind, then I'm going to plan about a $20,000 budget for this project, but we can give you multiple pages in your design that are phased out.
Yeah.
So we can say like your phase 1 design, you're probably going to spend 7 to 10 to really get closer to that C grade, and then that 10 to 20 you can tinker. Yeah. And you can work.
And honestly, I was assuming it would be higher than 20 to get from C to.
Okay, good. Oh, okay.
I was
gonna make it work, but okay, that's great. That's good. I don't want to be disrespectful of a budget. I understand that like homes and renovations and restoration especially is such a big deal. But yeah, I do think that's realistic.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, now we can really talk about what we're going to do in this park strip. Even with a $20,000 budget, we're not going to put $5,000 worth of plants just in a park strip. So we need to figure out what's going to make like the best impact while also not making you lose your mind with maintenance. Right now, it's just buying weed. You're mowing it, so it's like it looks tolerable, to be honest. Like it's not.
Not like the worst thing.
Does the city, like, I see it mowed all the way down? Or is
no.
Just everybody's doing that?
I think everybody's is at a standstill because of how hot it is.
Right.
I actually haven't mowed this front part in a while.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually just the way that it is because of, look at
how hot it is.
Okay, that is not bad. We could solarize this, and then you could basically just rake it all up. That's probably the cheapest way to go about doing this. I can send you some resources on solarizing, but essentially we're cooking it under a sheet of plastic. And if you wonder what kind of plastic, just figure like...
I have a bunch of landscape fabric that I just tore up from there. And now there's weeds, but...
No,
those would be a little bit easier
fine
to maintain. But
I typically do a clear plastic, but black will work too. It does kind of torch the soil more.
Yeah.
But this soil probably has very little going for it anyway, just urban, 100-year-old
like
house,
dust.
neglected soil. So we're going to have to amend anyway. You could... As soon as you have time and energy, August is probably the latest I would start a solarization project. Get all of this covered.
Okay.
Because if this could just, for the remainder of the hot months, just be under there, then in October you could rake this. It'll just be thatch.
Yeah.
You can rake all of it out, and then we could get like a nice topsoil and some mulch down, and then you could plant next year.
Okay.
But it's still going to be like tolerable and not this. So maybe we'll solarize this. Man, it's like, how do we do this without spending all of your money just on the most square footage we've ever seen in a yard, right? I don't want to just have super exposed mulch because then you have to weed it all of the time. How opposed are you to trees and shrubs?
Not opposed.
Okay. Because if we were to go with some pretty sizable shrubs, that's going to cover a ton of square footage. Like we could do serviceberry or elderberry, or I could think of like some native viburnum. We could do, it's too hot for native dogwoods here, I think, but regardless, just picture big, pretty 10-foot wide by 10-foot tall kind of shrubs. The only place I don't want to put them is right in front of the house.
Yeah, I would love something like that right here because it gives a little bit more privacy, I think, as well.
Yeah, privacy, like starting kind of here and that way. I don't want to hide the historic home. So we can kind of slant and then, but just go big, tall, and bushy. Like basically like just make it a forest. No one's using it. How do you feel about that?
I would love that.
Okay.
That's the goal.
That seems a lot cheaper to me than 500 perennials planted next to each other if we just really put some big stuff in here. Okay. I think that's the plan. Arts and crafts stuff there with the fence. Shall we go talk about the corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very corner.
Got a lot happening.